Welcome to 1189, an online Bible commentary. My name is Tyler Marston, and today we're taking a look at Deuteronomy chapter 15. Moses is continuing to repeat a lot of the laws that have already been given throughout the first 5 books of the Bible. And here, he repeats instructions about the Sabbatic year, one of the most countercultural ideas in all of the Old Testament. It ensures that people will not oppress the poor, mandating loan forgiveness. It's pretty ironic in our culture and context that so many who are against mandated loan forgiveness claim to be evangelical Christians, but that's neither here nor there. The fact is, Jesus himself saw his ministry as fulfilling and keeping these commands. If we're really following him, we ought to be treating the poor and vulnerable in our communities in the same way, with generosity and open-handedness. At the end of every 7 years, you shall grant a remission of debts. This is the manner of remission. Every creditor shall release what he has loaned to his neighbor. He shall not exact it of his neighbor and his brother, because the Lord's remission has been proclaimed. From a foreigner you may exact it, but your hand shall release whatever of yours is with your brother. Here, Moses begins repeating some of the most radical commands in the Old Testament, originally given in Leviticus 25. Every 7 years, debts were to be forgiven. Everybody had a blank slate. That was no matter how large or small your debt was, how much progress had been made on paying it back, and no hit to your FICO score. I mean, really take a second and think about how radical this is. It's completely unheard of, even in, and maybe especially in, our 21st century capitalist utopia. The Jews were instructed to do this, and the goal was to increase the bond of brotherhood between neighbors in their communities. Now, they didn't have to forgive the debts of foreigners, and that was done to reinforce the idea of Israel as a nation that was set apart. But also, there's nowhere that says that they couldn't forgive Gentile debts. Now, of course, this was to happen every 7 years, playing off the idea of the Sabbath, the day of rest that happened every 7 days, which in turn was inspired by God resting on the 7th day of creation. Now, ultimately, all these building cycles of 7 were to point ahead to the day where all creation could rest together in God's presence, the day God would eliminate all evil and sin and make the world right. However, there will be no poor among you, since the Lord will surely bless you in the land which the Lord your God is giving you as an inheritance to possess, if only you listen obediently to the voice of the Lord your God, to observe carefully all this commandment which I am commanding you today. For the Lord your God will bless you as he has promised you, and you will lend to many nations, but you will not borrow, and you will rule over many nations, but they will not rule over you. Clearly, Israel is to be this kind of forerunning of this perfected new creation. Right? This ought to be a land where no one is poor at all. If they just listen and obey God's commands, if they love him and love others like they're supposed to, then God says he's going to rain down blessings on the Israelites. They're not going to be indebted to nor ruled over any pagan nations. But clearly, we know Israel is going to fail to live up to these expectations. They will be indebted to other nations, and they will be conquered by other nations. And Israel's prophets were clear that part of that was because of their neglect of the poor. But what these verses show is the end goal God is trying to accomplish. He wants a society that listens to him and that listens to his commandments, one that takes care of the needs of their poor neighbors, empowered by the Lord himself. And this is exactly what Jesus said that he came to bring. In Luke 4, when he reads Isaiah 61, all about the year of the Lord's favor, this is the kind of eternal Sabbatic year that Jesus and Isaiah have in mind. If there is a poor man with you, one of your brothers, in any of your towns in your land which the Lord your God is giving you, you shall not harden your heart, nor close your hand from your poor brother, but you shall freely open your hand to him, and shall generously lend him sufficient for his need in whatever he lacks. Now we know that Moses, and God by extension, they're not being naive. Right after he says, there will be no poor in the land, He describes exactly what to do when there are poor in the land. And what Israel is to do is to give to them charitably. And ironically, if they follow these commands of making sure that the needs of the poor are met, then there won't be any poor in the land. And so all the people are to be generous, working together, providing so that no one is lacking anything. It's similar language to how the early church acted in Acts 2, how they shared their possessions to make sure that everyone's needs were met. Of course, that's further evidence to the fact that God really did usher in new creation through the death and resurrection of Christ, that Jesus really did bring the year of the Lord's favor. Beware that there is no base thought in your heart, saying, "The 7th year, the year of remission is near, and your eye is hostile towards your poor brother, and you give him nothing. Then he may cry to the Lord against you, and it will be a sin in you. You shall generously give to him, and your heart shall not be grieved when you give to him, because for this thing the Lord your God will bless you in all your work and in all your undertakings. For the poor will never cease to be in the land. Therefore I command you, saying, you shall freely open your hand to your brother, to your needy and poor in your land." Now, the obvious problem with this idea of the Sabbatic year is, let's say someone sees a poor brother in the 5th year or the 6th year. They know that the Sabbatic year is coming and that if they give, they probably are not going to get paid back. And so one might conclude that they should just look the other way and let their brother suffer for a little bit longer. And Moses commands that the people should absolutely not do this. Be generous every year, Moses says. Give to the poor constantly, Moses says. Or else, the poor person that you abandoned might cry out to God because you neglected them. And we know how God feels about oppressed people crying out to him. And then Moses goes on to confirm what we inferred earlier. There will actually always be poor people in the land that Israel should be generous to. And Israel failing at God's covenant means that God will have to find another way to reconcile all creation. But what it also means is that there will always be an opportunity to help someone who needs it. There will always be an opportunity to do right. If your kinsman, a Hebrew man or woman, is sold to you, then he shall serve you 6 years. But in the 7th year, you shall set him free. When you set him free, you shall not send him away empty-handed. You shall furnish him liberally from your flock, and from your threshing floor, and from your wine vat. You shall give to him as the Lord your God has blessed you. You shall remember that you were a slave in the land of Egypt, and the Lord your God redeemed you. Therefore I command you this today. Not only are monetary debts forgiven every 7 years, but even people who are sold into debt slavery because they have no other way to repay their loan, they should be released after 7 years. Praise God, we don't have slaves in America today, but this was a completely radical and countercultural idea in this place and time. When slaves have worked 7 years, they're to be freed, released. They're even to be given a severance package. And that's because they're to be seen as brothers first and slaves second. Again, a lot of these commands are repeated, like these from Exodus 21. Now, of course, this empathy towards slaves should be rooted in the fact that Israel as a whole nation used to be enslaved in Egypt. And actually, that's why they're here now on the border of the Promised Land, because God saw their oppression and generously released them, rescued them, and is bringing them into a land that can be their own. To turn around and abuse their own slaves, that would be spitting in the face of the God who had had such a great mercy on them. It shall come about if he says to you, I will not go out from you, because he loves you and your household, since he fares well with you. Then you shall take an awl and pierce it through his ear into the door, and he shall be your servant forever. And you shall do likewise to your maidservant. Of course, again, this is pretty foreign to us, but in this time there's always the possibility that there's a slave who really loves working for his master and would prefer working for him as opposed to trying to make it on his own. After all, it is tough to make a living out in the world. I mean, that's true even today. And so God gives slaves the choice as to whether they want to serve their masters or be freed. But the key is that it's the choice of the slave. Again, that's completely countercultural. Slaves were seen as property, not as real people. Giving them this freedom, this agency, was just another example of treating all people, all humans, as if they were actually made in God's image. It shall not seem hard to you when you set him free, for he has given you 6 years with double the service of a hired man. So the Lord your God will bless you in whatever you do. Now, on the flip side, an easy way for a slave to abuse this system is to phone in their work for 7 years and then go free, barely paying off their debt. That's why Moses includes this clause. It doesn't demand anything of the slaves, but it encourages them to work hard at clearing their ledger while there's still time. At bottom, the picture is one of both parties treating each other as God intended, meaning that God is going to bless everyone involved. You shall consecrate to the Lord your God all the firstborn males that are born of your herd and of your flock. You shall not work with the firstborn of your herd, nor shear the firstborn of your flock. You and your household shall eat it every year before the Lord your God in the place which the Lord chooses. But if it has any defect, such as lameness or blindness or any serious defect, you shall not sacrifice it to the Lord your God. You shall eat it within your gates. The unclean and the clean alike may eat it, as a gazelle or a deer. Only you shall not eat its blood. You are to pour it out on the ground like water. Finally, we hear more repeated laws about consecrating firstborn animals. They are to be marked as holy to God and sacrificed at the tabernacle or temple, just as Deuteronomy 12 and 14 said. Of course, that's all provided that they have no blemishes or defects that would disqualify them from sacrifice, according to Leviticus 7. In all, this chapter really focuses on the Sabbatic year, forgiving debts and releasing slaves. It's a completely radical idea to ensure that there are no poor in the land. And it gives us a vision of the ultimate new creation that God is trying to usher in. These social laws make Israel unique and show the value that they should treat everyone as if they were made in God's image. But ultimately, we know that Israel will fail. And that's why Jesus came to fulfill this law. And of course, that means that we, as Jesus' followers, also have the responsibility to care for the poor in our communities and forgive debts indebted to us. Thanks for watching 1189. I hope that you have a good day, and God bless.